Imagine sending your teenage daughter into a farmer's market on her birthday, only to find her cornered by six grown adults screaming that she's unchristian and ungrateful. That's exactly what happened to me. And when I tell you I unleashed a storm so devastating that my ex-in-laws had to crawl out of their own church in shame, you'll understand why this story is one of the most satisfying acts of revenge I've ever pulled off. If you've ever been underestimated, manipulated, or told to just accept being treated unfairly, then you're going to love this story. So hit that like button, subscribe if you crave stories where justice actually gets served, and let's dive into how I turned my ex-in-laws' lies against them, using nothing but the truth. I'm a 46-year-old mom of two teenage daughters, 17 and 15. They've already been through enough heartache to last a lifetime. Their father, my ex-husband, died last year in an accident. Sounds tragic, right? But here's the bitter truth. He wasn't the loving husband and father everyone thought. Before he died, my daughters were the ones who actually discovered his affair, not just a fling. He fathered two boys with his mistress. And then, to make matters worse, the mistress died in the same accident. So, in one instant, my daughters lost their father, learned of his betrayal, and were suddenly expected to embrace two half-brothers, who, to them, symbolized every lie he ever told. They're in therapy, they're fragile, and the last thing they needed was more pressure from his parents. But of course, that's exactly what they got. My ex-in-laws, an elderly couple in their late 70s, decided that after their son's death, they had the right to insert themselves into our lives however they pleased. They tried to get custody of my girls. They tried to move into my home. And when I told them no, that my daughter's well-being came first, they turned vindictive. Fast forward to my youngest birthday weekend. We went to this beautiful farmer's market, fresh produce, local honey, handmade crafts. My plan was simple. Give my daughter some money and let her pick out whatever she wanted. Chocolate, sweets. It was supposed to be a happy, carefree day. After an hour, I started to worry because she hadn't come back. Just as I was pulling out my phone, she called me, sobbing. My stomach dropped. "Mom, some weird people are yelling at me," she cried. I grabbed my oldest and ran. And there she was, my baby girl, cornered by six older women. They were towering over her, pointing fingers, calling her unchristian and ungrateful for refusing to spend time with her grandparents or be a good big sister to her poor orphaned brothers. My daughter looked so small, clutching her bag of birthday sweets while tears streamed down her face. My oldest froze, but I felt something ignite inside me. Rage. Protective, motherly rage. I stepped between them and my daughter, my voice sharp enough to cut glass. Back off. They sneered at me like vultures circling prey. Some of them I recognized from my ex-in-law's church. That explained everything. They said I was failing as a mother, that I should obey my in-laws like a good Christian wife, that I was turning my girls against family. A good Christian wife to a dead man who cheated on me? Barf. I told my eldest to take her sister, pay for the candy, and get to the car. And as they walked away, I let loose on those women. Years of pent-up betrayal and fury came pouring out of me. My voice shook with rage. My fists clenched so tight my nails dug into my palms. Eventually, the shouting grew so loud market security asked us to leave. But as I walked to my car, those women followed me, squawking like crows, throwing insults. I slammed the door, turned the key, and drove off, hands trembling, but my mind already spinning. That night, when my girls were in bed, I reached out to a friend who still went to that church. He apologized for what happened, but then told me the truth. My ex-mother-in-law had posted this massive sob story on the church's Facebook group. She painted me as a cold, selfish woman who abandoned her and her husband. She claimed we were leaving them homeless and penniless, despite the fact they'd gotten support and my ex left them nothing but his lies. She even claimed that the mistress was actually our surrogate, that I supposedly rejected the boys because they were just boys. The audacity, the disgust. And of course, the church members, especially the more extreme ones, ate it up. They pitied her, they vilified me. But she made one critical mistake. This church, they're backwards on a lot of things, but if there's one thing they don't tolerate, it's cheating. And I had receipts. The revenge plan. That night, I stayed awake staring at the ceiling, heart pounding. This wasn't just about me anymore. My daughters had been publicly humiliated, slandered, and shamed. Enough was enough. The next morning, I gathered everything. Photos of my ex with his mistress, screenshots of their texts, emails where his parents admitted they knew about the affair and supported him. Messages where they bullied my daughters, calling them bastards, even blaming them for their father's death because they told me about the affair. 2 days after he died, they called my girls bastards. That memory alone fueled me. I marched into a print shop and had everything printed. High resolution, glossy, undeniable. Then I got creative. I bought binders, the same size and style as the church's little hymn booklets. On the cover, plain, innocent, but inside, all inside was a carefully curated album I titled Ex's Name and Mistress's Name, A Love Story. The first page, a full-color photo of my ex and his mistress making out in our living room, their faces clear as day, and beneath it, their names. Page after page of undeniable proof. The lies, the cheating, the harassment, the cruelty toward my daughters. I delivered them to the church early Sunday morning, placing them neatly among the hymn books. No one checks those piles. And then I waited. The payoff? Public humiliation. The gossip mill exploded. By Monday, Facebook was on fire. The congregation was furious, not at me, but at my ex and his parents. The names they called him and his mistress were so brutal, the pastor had to step in and beg people to tone it down. But the worst of it fell on my ex-in-laws. People were disgusted they had enabled the cheating, outraged that they had bullied 2 grieving teenagers. The irony? Some members still said I failed in my duties as a wife, but even they admitted it was understandable after the shock. The cheating, however, was unforgivable. My daughters received apology letters, even an invitation to return to the church for support. But the best part? My ex-in-laws were shamed right out of that community. They couldn't show their faces without whispers and glares. Eventually, they stopped going altogether. The final straw was my ex-mother-in-law's pitiful Facebook post, crying about how no one cares for the elderly anymore and how her great son would have taken care of her if he were alive. With what money? He couldn't even take care of himself. I can still picture it. Those hymn booklets being opened, the gasps echoing through the pews, whispers spreading like wildfire. My daughters, safe at home, had no idea in that moment that the very community that once shamed them was now defending them. Justice. Sweet, undeniable justice. Not through lies or manipulation, but through cold, hard truth. And my ex-in-laws? They wanted pity. Instead, they got exactly what they deserved. Public humiliation, permanent loss of their church family, and the bitter taste of their own medicine. You know, revenge doesn't always have to be loud. Sometimes the most devastating revenge is simply pulling back the curtain and letting people see the truth for themselves. Lies crumble, truth endures. And in this case, truth gave my daughters back their dignity. If this story gave you chills, smash that like button and tell me in the comments what's the most satisfying revenge you've ever seen or wish you could pull off. And of course, Don't forget to subscribe for more stories where justice isn't just imagined, it's delivered.